I've never been as happy as right now, but shit, I gotta cope with the fact that it dies down. Cause in the end, I just wake up salty, start my day with a pot of black coffee.
It's that time of the year. It's spooky month. Time to take a small break from the normal Final Fantasy content for the fall. Don't worry, the next video is gonna be sooner than you realize. Now I just need to find something to do for this Halloween video. No, but I'm definitely gonna cover that game another time. Horror games are cool and all, and this one's on my list to play, and since it's brand new, this would be good for views, but let's go a little more vintage. That would be cool, but maybe something more on brand.
So what about anime horror?
Nyx, what are you doing in this video?
You asked me to do another video. Your view counts show the fans want it too.
Firstly, we have fans? Secondly, that's a really good idea. Let's see. I love Yoshitake Amano and his artwork. We could watch Angel's Egg.
The 4K remaster for that doesn't come out in theaters until next month?
Damn it. Well, Perfect Blue seems to fit the bill. I've heard a lot of good things about this movie, and it's in theaters now.
Sure, what could go wrong with this?
This is gonna be a long video. Perfect Blue is a film released in 1997 by the anime studio Madhouse, known for series like Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, and Death Note, but also films like Wolf Children. Directed by the late acclaimed director Satoshi Kon, known for other films like Tokyo Godfathers and Paprika and the series Paranoia Agent, this film is loosely based on the novel of the same name. It follows the story of Mima Kirige, a pop idol wanting to pivot her career to acting, but becomes the victim of stalking, and as gruesome murders happen around her, she begins to lose her grip on what's real and what isn't. I had never seen this film before, but I'd always heard that it's a must-watch for fans of horror and psychological thrillers, often compared to the works of David Lynch. Although I'm not super familiar with his work, I swear I'll get to Twin Peaks at some point. But seeing that this film got a 4K remaster this year and a limited theatrical run, I knew I had to go see it. Over the last year, me and Nyxorra have seen a lot of anime films in theaters since we're actual real-life friends, so how could we pass up on an opportunity to see such a classic and make a video of it? Just one problem. We live in kind of a nowhere area in the great state of Illinois. Thankfully, we live close enough to the St. Louis area to make the drive out to go see it.
We unfortunately didn't do much vlogging since someone in the car has serious anxiety being on camera, but we did make a stop to the mall since they still exist and went to Miniso and got some Don blind boxes. Cheebs is still searching for Ira. Me for everyone else.
So we pre-ordered our tickets a few days before since we get there on time and just want to skip the line. But with the last few years since the pandemic, theaters are a lot more dead, and we actually were the first and probably the only two people that got tickets ahead of time. But there were about 8 or so other people in the screening with us, so not entirely alone, but not cramped. We watched the previews, some looking pretty cool like Reize arc for Chainsaw Man and the new trailer for Mamoru Hosoda's new film Scarlet. Maybe we'll have to do videos on those too.
Pay me for Chainsaw Man and Scarlet, and we totally can. I can't keep doing voiceovers for free, and not gonna deal with Chainsaw Man fans barking when Makima is on screen.
I paid for your ticket, so shush it. The style is definitely new to me, and I'm not the best at it since while I love anime, gaming videos are definitely still my main forte. But before we go deeper, if you want good anime content and content on a more consistent basis, then check out Mimiori and her wonderful videos talking about all sorts of anime, like My Dress Up Darling. I even did an amazing video on Perfect Blue earlier this month that's a lot more analytical on the themes. So if you want to hear her thoughts too, I will have it linked at the end of the video and in the description. If you like her videos, then why not buy a cool shirt, because they look amazing even on a freak like me that doesn't show their face. This is in no way a paid sponsorship, this is just me shouting out a great creator and friend who puts their soul into the content that they make. Without further ado, let's talk about Perfect Blue. This section will be an attempt to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, just so you guys can get the general idea of the film before we dive into the deeper layers of this film, like its presentation. The story revolves around Mima Kirigi, a J-pop idol in the group Cham, and her leaving to pursue becoming an actress since she feels the pop idol route really isn't for her and her real passion lies in acting. This doesn't go perfectly well, leaving many of her fans upset at this. She then receives fan mail that tells her of Mima's Room, a strange internet blog written from her perspective by an obsessive fan who begins stalking her, even down to personal thoughts that only she should know. She does fairly well as an actress, going from minor roles in television dramas to larger parts and more explicit scenarios that change her image, although it does leave her and her manager Rumi distressed from scenes of sexual assault and pornographic photo shoots.
Mima then starts to experience psychosis caused by the stress of her new life and being stalked, causing her to see very paranormal versions of herself, still as an idol, and claiming to be the real version. As this is going on, there are murders and other violent acts committed around Mima as she slowly begins to lose sight of what is and isn't real around her. This allows the film to explore more complex ideas as Mima's mental state deteriorates, like dissociative identity disorder and the effects of parasocial relationships, but we'll talk more about that in the presentation section.
The story of this film is quite powerful, diving deep into the dark aspects of idol culture which still affects society, not just in Japan but across the world, as we now have all sorts of fandoms with parasocial and stalkerish personalities, such as K-pop and even voice acting. It really shows the mental strain these people go through and worry for their own safety. I would say this film takes it to its logical extremes, but the sad thing is, it's still very real and horrifying to think about since people go through this, and the fact that it's part of their lives could just drive them insane like Mima. This film definitely stands out visually. I love its color palettes and its characters stand out from each other. Some of the faces look off, but that's very on theme with how Satoshi Kon designs characters to show the sense of dissonance and distress clashing with the more normal aspects of the world around them.
While Perfect Blue grounds itself into reality, it still dips into and plays with supernatural ideas, and as it goes on, it starts to make you question what actually is real and what isn't. Aside from the hallucinations of the real Mima, every scene feels like it could have happened, and for the first time viewing experience, it leaves you questioning what happened due to the main character slowly becoming a more and more unreliable narrator, and wonder how far her psychosis goes, since her stalker seems to also see this version of Mima implies he is speaking to her via email.
As someone who's a decently large horror fan, I'm not always the biggest fan of films that are like, ooh, mental illness, scary. But this film does it really well because it really respects the idea and explores it in a realistic way. While I enjoy films like Split, I do have issues with it because it does simplify DID, which is an inherently complex condition, and uses it as a sort of supernatural power. A good comparison to Perfect Blue's portrayal of Mima stalker Mamoru Uchida, or commonly known as Mimania or Mimamia, it's supposed to be kind of a pun, but it doesn't really work as well in English, would be Jack Torrance and Stanley Kubrick's film adaptation of The Shining by Stephen King. We watch as Jack's mental health deteriorates and goes crazy like the previous caretaker of the Overlook. While the film and even original novel have supernatural elements showing the spirits of the hotel manipulate him to follow through with it on top of his alcoholism, it does leave the door open for deeper discussions on if it's really ghosts or his mind's excuses for his actions as he relapses and drinks more, the isolation from the rest of society driving him mad as well. This will be discussed more in the spoiler section when we talk about the themes of this movie.
I'm gonna take your word on that, since you're definitely the bigger horror and movie buff of the two of us.
While we are talking about the film's presentation, the music of this movie is amazing. Each song perfectly sets the mood of the scene they're used in. Virtua Mima is a song that still sits in my head after viewing because the wind chimes and light but impactful percussion of the track leave a distinct impression with the humming and operatic vocals, almost like a drone into something more otherworldly, fitting for a theme associated with someone or something that may or may not be there. I knew I had heard this track before in video essays on horror games and ARGs, but now I can put a name to the source from where it comes from. It and the other tracks in the film are just fantastic.
The horror tracks are really good as they kind of juxtapose the J-pop tracks in other scenes to pull you back into reality, but also it can throw you off when used in scenes like the parking garage for Shibuya. It also uses silence very well to keep you unnerved, waiting for something to happen. The film did make me jump a couple of times when these occurred, and sound is a key part of horror because it sets the tone of the scene. It helps influence how you feel since it's not just a written medium like a novel or a manga.
I agree with that a lot. Horror ambience is key for why games like Silent Hill resonate so well with people. Maybe we'll have to do a horror game review at some point and...
No.
This is the part of the video where we start talking more about spoilers as we dive into the themes of the film. If the discussion this far has interested you enough to watch the movie, I would recommend doing so now. In terms of legal means, you can rent it on Amazon Video or Apple TV, but there are also physical releases you could purchase. Unfortunately, it's not available on any streaming service at the moment. Pause the video here and come back after you've seen it, or you can skip to the timestamp on screen to skip to the conclusion and hear our final thoughts of the film. Like mentioned earlier, Perfect Blue is a really good depiction of the dangers of parasocial relationships in Japan's idol culture. Mimania is a really good case study of an obsessive superfan. His love for Mima is not just dangerous to her, but to other people. Early on, the film implies that he killed one of the delinquents who disrespected Mima at her final concert and was responsible for the other murderers around her, even going so far as to nearly sexually assault and kill her, believing her to be an imposter who took the real Mima's place, getting emails from said real Mima.
The film's twist of her manager Rumi being behind the killings and manipulating Mimania is a twist and is lightly hinted at, but makes a lot of sense since idols have to not show how harassment and performing in certain ways affects them. Watching Mima do a scene where she is violated and doing nude photo shoots broke Rumi since she missed her days as an idol and lived her fantasies through Mima. All of the collapsing around her caused her to develop the persona of the real Mima, and committed the murders and leave evidence for Mima to see, as she is already struggling to tell what is and what isn't real. It makes the viewer kind of question if she did it or if it was just a fantasy.
As an antagonist, Rumi is a fantastic depiction on how a dormant mental illness can be brought out via traumatic events. Like, even though the scene that broke Rumi didn't happen to her, it still affected her as much as it affected Mima. Unlike Mima, who wanted to be an actress so bad she suppressed it, knowing that she needed to do this to further her career, Rumi gave in to the delusion that she was the Mima she saw as dead, assuming the persona inside of her head. This is a parallel to the ending of the in-universe drama Double Bind. However, it is kind of genius because it still leaves the ending up to interpretation, making the comparison that people make to the work of David Lynch make a bit more sense. As mentioned before, there's no reliable narrator for a majority of the film, so you could argue that perhaps the ending is not actually the real Mima. Maybe it's in her head too and based on another drama, or maybe she did get hit by that bus. Maybe it's like BoJack Horseman, Season 5, Episode 11, The Showstopper, where he loses his grasp between his real life and his role on a show as he spirals into addiction.
Okay, I think you're just getting a bit pretentious. But I do see what you're saying in its narrative, even if I haven't seen all of BoJack Horseman. It is very disturbing that stuff like this can even be closer to reality than it is to fiction, having real-life samples just this year alone with voice actors and other celebrities that people idolize. They grow attached and feel like they are a part of their lives of idols. VTubers are a great example too, since many have had stalking situations that are as scary as Perfect Blue in the roughly decade that VTubing has existed as a genre.
Outside of that, the film is a really dark look at the cost of fame and the search for one's identity and taking back autonomy and control, with Mima struggling to let go of her past as an idol to fit into the new role she wants as an actress. The reflection imagery really amplifying this as she tries to reconcile who she is and who others want her to be. To wrap up this review, Perfect Blue is probably the closest thing I've seen to a true masterpiece in a long time. From its wonderful pacing and writing to how it creates very disturbing view into identity and a critique of how Japan, and I guess now the world on a larger scale, treats idols and celebrity culture, but especially how women are treated and objectified in said industries.
Jeeves here really brought all my thoughts together on this review, let me tell you, almost like we talked about it in the car ride back home. But as for my 2 cents, I'm not the biggest horror content consumer. I'm a big weenie, honestly. But I have just recently gotten into a lot of horror indie Let's Plays, and let me tell you, the movie really brought everything I've seen together. Seems like a lot of horror content, especially ones coming out of Japan, revolve around things that happen to women a lot. And no, I am not saying this doesn't happen to men, but to the AVAB people I know in my life, I know many of them can say they have experienced one or more of these things that were portrayed in the movie. The stalking, parasocial relationships, the feeling that you either have to portray yourself as innocent or go the exact opposite route, the feeling like you have to sell yourself to get a fraction of recognition. This movie really shows the audience things that many women deal with day to day. This movie is such a great representation of how it is either to be a woman in society that doesn't value you as you, but your body, and how such parasocial relationships that people have with idols and celebrities can go over such an uncomfortable line, one that we see a lot in our time today.
That's going to do it for this review, but thank you so much for watching, and special thanks to Nyxorra for helping with the production of this video. If you guys want to see more anime content from me, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's share this video around since we're trying to get the channel to 250 subs by the end of 2025. If you want more anime content or another creator's perspective on this masterpiece, then check out my good friend Mimiori's channel. I'll have her video in the end cards of this episode, but make sure you check out her other videos too. Until next time, be safe on this spooky Halloween.